What was the biggest risk that you've ever taken that yielded you the best reward? Was something that scared the shit out of you?
Most definitely getting sober. The day I made the decision, I had overdosed the third week of July, summer 2004 in New York City. And I basically, flatlined in this apartment. The girl that I was with, it was just her and I, she completely, bugged out and refused to call an ambulance because we were in her boyfriend's apartment.
Oh.
And, that's the kind of guy I was. And so I remember her dragging me from where I where I passed out. I remember her dragging me along the floor into the bathroom. And she, I was kind of coming in and out a little bit, but she got me into the bathtub, flipped me on my back, and just turned the cold water on. And so I was lying on the floor of the bathtub, cold water hitting me in the face and in the chest. And I was kind of like coming in and out. And I remember so basically what happened was I was sitting on the edge of the bed. There was a mirror on the headboard. I remember doing a bunch of heroin, looking to my right, seeing my reflection in the mirror, and I was naked, and I was white like paper from the top of my head to my toes. And I've always looked in the mirror and been like gray, but I never saw my whole body, my chest, my legs, my arms, my hands, everything was just white like a ghost. And I knew that something was wrong, like very, very wrong. And so I kind of had like a mini like panic attack, stood up, and boom, out. My knees just buckled. And I'd overdosed. And so I came to about a half hour later in the bathtub, and she was on the floor screaming, crying, like thinking I was dead. But I came out of it, and she got me back into the bed. I was in the bed shaking like a leaf in the fucking wintertime in Michigan. And I like warmed my body up for a couple of hours and said to myself, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of this apartment. We had like locked ourselves in that apartment for like 2 or 3 days. Mm. And I remember walking west on 13th Street in the East Village, saying to myself, this is it. This is the time where you're supposed to change and stop. You cannot do this anymore. You've taken it too far. Everybody's been telling you that enough is enough. And then 4 hours later, I was using again. I couldn't stop. And I made a decision at that moment that I was going to die this way. I was like, it is physically, emotionally, and mentally out of my control. I cannot stop from using this drug. And I had just sort of given up right then and there. I was like, that's it. Like, let's just make it fast. I was like, you're going to die this way. It's going to happen soon. It happened earlier today. Let's just make it fast. And so that like led me to a 2-week long death march. And then I'd been on a run for 2 weeks. I was on a rooftop in the East Village, the roof of my apartment building, and it was scorching hot. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning, just unbelievable city heat, like 100% humidity. And, when you're drinking around the clock, using drugs around the clock, and at that point, it was like, I was just like anything that comes my way, like anything that anybody has, anything that I wanted to buy, just give it all to me. Because I knew, I had consciously made the decision that this was it. This is how it was going to go out, and it was going to happen soon. And the 2 guys that I was with, one of them is sober now, one of them is not. They were like, we're calling it. And I was like, later. And I walked downstairs into my apartment and I had another mirror interaction. I walked into my bedroom and behind my bedroom door was a wall mirror, and I like caught my reflection in the mirror as I was walking into that room. And I think for the first time ever, I like looked at myself in the eyes. You know, it's a kind of a powerful thing to do. Like when you look in the mirror to check your fit, you typically don't like make eye contact. You know, it's not like a conscious thing. You're just like looking to see how everything looks. In this moment, I made direct eye contact with myself. And the words that came out of my mouth was, I hate you. You're useless. You may not die this way, so you might as well jump. And I lived on the 6th floor of this apartment building. And, I went through a series of negotiations with myself.
What did that sound like?
Let's come up with the most like creative way to do this.
Oh.
And the thought for me was nail your t-shirt into your windowsill and sit there, drink and get high until you fall, hang and then fall. Like I was like, in my mind, I was thinking that would be like a romantic way. Like the guy nailed his t-shirt into the windowsill and he just drank with it, hanging out the windowsill until he fell. And somehow, some way, maybe it had something to do with the thought of the window, because for me now in sobriety, when I think about how God entered my life, I think of a window opening up and just a breeze walking, coming in for the first time and me being able to kind of appreciate that, it was just like the window opened and there was this little sliver of space for me to take a step in the direction of the light. And so I blacked out. And came to 16 hours later on the floor of my bedroom, slept through work because I still had a job in a restaurant. And I'd been working in this restaurant for a couple of years, 2.5 years at that point. I got hired when I was 20. And I was, maybe 3 years I was working there. And Frank, the owner of that restaurant, became like, I still call him my restaurant dad. He became like a surrogate kind of, like I really looked up to him. And I basically like used him as a muse because the guy Frank Prizanzano. If you don't follow him on social media, you should. He's a fucking character. But basically, I slept through work and I called him and he said, come to the restaurant, Mike. And came to the restaurant, sat down with him, and he said, look, dude, I love you. You know that. But I can't watch you do this. I can't watch this happen. You have to change. You have to change. You have to get sober. And I'm firing you. So many people had told me I had to get sober. I mean, so many people. For years at that point. I knew that I had to get sober. I wanted desperately to get sober. And for whatever reason, sitting across from him that day, he said, I have to fire you. I love you. I'm watching you die and I can't do that. You have to get sober. And I begged for my job. I mean, my job was the only thing really tethering me to life. I begged him for my job. He said, I can't give you a job. He said, but what I'll do is I'll let you come to the restaurant in the morning and clean it with the porters at 8 a.m. You call me when you get here. If you call me a minute late, you're fired. If I find out you've had a sip of alcohol, and I will, you're fired. If you take any drugs, you're done. And that was the last day I took a drink or had a drug.
Wow.
And I made a phone call to the one person who I knew well, who was sober. Nobody in my world was sober. But I knew this one woman, Karen, who was sober. And she took me in she was kind of like an older sister to me. I moved out of my parents' house super young and I was running the streets of New York from 15 on. And whenever I was like super down and out or strung out, I would call Karen and she would say, come over. And she would like let me like, catch up in her apartment in the East Village for a few days. Anyway, I called her. She was dating a guy named Marcus, who's, arguably another angel that showed up in my life. And she was dating Marcus. Marcus was sober. And she called Marcus and she said, you know what, let me call my boyfriend and see if he's able to, come see you. And so he just showed up. And between Frank and Marcus sat down with me and he really, he is the guy. Frank was the catalyst. Marcus was I owe my life to that guy.
It's amazing when we start telling, the truths about our situation, how much, relatability there is. One thing that you had said a little bit before was the idea of romanticizing how you were going to do it, unalive yourself. I know that. I know that feeling. And, you hear people talk about like cry for help and things like that, but no. I think anybody that's struggled with that part of it, where it's like it's the end of the road, it's a pretty romantic situation. It's something that you obsess on. It's something that you think about constantly, and I know that was the case for myself. Was that an in the moment thing, or was that something that you continuously had go on in your head?
Yeah. So I cut my wrist when I was 12. That was a real cry for help, but I did it in front of my father. So my father and I had gotten into a battle. I was 12. It was the year of my life where I really started to transition into exploring cigarettes, weed, alcohol, and my situation at home was really rough. My dad was a very, very tough, old school, blue collar, I don't give a fuck kind of guy. And he was also very sick physically, on permanent disability, but undiagnosed bipolar, paranoid schizophrenic.
Oh, wow.
So he and I were at odds from day one. And I was an easy target for him because, I was the only other guy in the house, right? It was my mother, my father, my sister, and I. We lived in this really tight quartered apartment, small 600 square foot apartment. And my dad, just like took it out on me, projected all of his aggression and his anger out on me. And so we had a physically violent relationship. And so we had a battle, and I just said to myself in that moment, another like, hey, let me be creative about how I do this, even at that age. And I called him into the room, and I was thinking when he was going to come into the room, I was going to cut my wrists and go like this and say, this is what you forced me to do. And thinking he was going to like run over to me and hug me and tell me he loved me and I'm sorry. And I did it. I cut my wrists and I said, this is what the fuck you forced me to do. And he just unloaded on me, just beat the shit out of me. And I obviously didn't cut my wrist deep enough, but child services were kind of in my family situation at that point. So when I showed up to school with bandages on my wrist, the social worker who used to come and check in on me, and I would have to go see her a couple times a week, she was like, what are those? And at that point, I was just like, fuck it. I just told her the truth, Said I cut my wrist last night. My dad and I got into a fist fight. And, I cut my wrist, and she immediately had to send me into evaluation, So yeah, it's been a part of my life for sure. Knock on wood, thank God, I don't think about suicide much today. There are moments in time when things are super intense and hectic, and my brain, my conscious mind will take me into, oh man, like if it just ended, it would go away. There before you should go get high. So
I feel that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I would say the biggest risk I've ever taken in my life to date was the best thing that's ever happened to me. Right. So Marcus came, sat down with me, asked me to just spew my guts for him, spewed my guts for 4 hours. And this guy, this is another thing that I'll say in regards to like the sober sobriety recovery thing, specifically for young men and young women. I believe there's a number of components that I think do need to line up for it to stick at that age. I was 23, right before my 24th birthday. But I didn't know much about sobriety. All I did know was that like I really wanted to get sober, but I loved getting high so much that I was scared about what my life was going to look like as a sober person.
And I was just going to say that a lot of times, because I agree with you, that one of like my biggest risks that I ever took was getting sober as well. And I think people watching this that don't understand, more often than not, risk comes with sacrifice. And before we get sober, the things that go on in our heads are, wait, if I have a kid, I can't drink at their wedding, no more concerts, right? I can't drink on the golf course. Like you start compiling all of the memories and things that you associate with drinking and using, and you're taking that away, right? Like it's a big sacrifice for somebody who it's so ingrained in their lifestyle.
Well, it's also when you don't, like, I don't even think I went that far. For me, I was just like, I'm going to live a boring life. Like that was the thought process. Like all my friends, I'm not going to be able to hang out with anymore. So who am I? I'm thinking that I'm going to be like with a bunch of like priests and librarians, like that's like the thought, especially when you don't know much about the world of recovery. It couldn't be further from the truth. So anybody that's listening, like it is not the truth. But I think for what I found to be a success model was guys like you and I who are successful, cool. Like this dude walked in the room. He had a shaved head, covered in tattoos, tough dude, and sat down with me and said, brother, I'm going to help you. And I was like, oh my God, like that's what sobriety is? That guy's 12 years sober? Like that guy's been sober for 12 years? I could do that. Like I want to do that. I want to impress that guy. I want that guy to pat me on the back. And that's why you and I are so important in the world of recovery, because there are a lot of young dudes now it's, kids in their teens, 20s, early 20s like me, that are looking that know that they're in prison of their own making and don't want to live that way, but don't know another way, and are looking for guys like you and I to come pat them on the back.
So your guy was Marcus?
Yeah.
My guy was Marty. And he was a friend of my dad's growing up. And I never, all I remember my mom saying as a kid, and this guy was the coolest dude ever, right? He dated Miss Maine. You know what I mean? Like he was like the coolest dude you've ever met. I remember a number of things that he did in my life that, because he was always around. He's my dad's best friend. But I always remember my mom saying, we'd go out with Marty and Heather, and Marty would always drive because he didn't drink, but he was always the best time. Mm-hmm. And I always remembered her saying that. And in my head, it didn't compute. I was like, oh, he doesn't drink, but he's out having a great time. So my last moment my first time really crying out for help, we moved from Maine to Michigan, okay? 20 years go by. I don't ever talk to Marty again. Never really even thought about him, right? He was out of our life. I moved out.
Because he was still in Maine.
He was still in Maine. So we just disconnected, right? Lost touch. And I remember I was sitting in my bathroom in my high rise, and I was just gone. Just nitrous and everything you can imagine. I had a whole drawer just full of all kinds of stuff. And I remember I was sitting in there. I was hiding in my bathroom. From what? I don't know. And I remember I pulled up my phone and I looked up. He was a pretty well-known hairstylist.
Marty.
He did all the pageant queens and stuff. And I remember I looked him up, Marty Clark. And I can talk about this now. There's a chapter in my book called Marty. And I called him, a guy from Boston, thick Boston accent. And I said, hey, Marty, this is Justin Wenzel. I don't know if you remember me. Justin, how the fuck are you, bro? It's great to hear from you. How's your father? And I said, hey, I said, he's great. I said, I'm not okay. And I said, I don't know why I'm calling you. I said, but I remember something. I remember you were like the coolest guy in the world and I fucking looked up to you like no one else. And I remember my mom saying that you just never drank. And he's like, yeah, bud. He's like, I have about 35 years of sobriety. He goes, your parents don't know this about me. They just didn't think that I didn't drink. He goes, he was like, I used to be, pretty rough dude.
Mm.
And he said to me, let's find freedom together. And when he said that to me, I didn't drop it then. And in fact, I called him a few more times and he just called me out of my shit right away.
Mm-hmm.
And when I told you last night when I went through, when I got on the plane to come out here, I called him and he said, okay, now we can actually do this. We're going to find freedom together. And I took that, and when I started sponsoring guys, I took those words, let's find freedom together. And that is what it is. It is freedom, right? We are fucking slaves to substance and our thoughts and everything else that go along with it. But it's just so funny how these parallels come, you know what I mean? How much we have in common as with our stories.
Yeah.
The romanticizing of how we were going to do it, how we're going to end it. Dude.
You want people to tell a story, right?
Yeah.
You want there to be like a story about it. You want
waking up on train tracks, like why did I even do this? Like really weird behavior.
Mm. Yeah, so I think when I of course when you asked that question, my brain was like, oh, what's the biggest business risk I've taken?
Right.
And fact is, I don't sit anywhere close to this seat, anywhere near you, without my sobriety. That is it. Period. Done. I don't have my wife. I don't have kids. I don't have business. I don't have fitness. I don't have nutrition. I don't love myself. I don't have my health. I don't like none of it. None of it.
I think most regular business owners, I would almost say mediocre business owners, would go straight into a business risk.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the business owners that I have talked to over the years, and when I ask about what their biggest risk was, it had nothing to do with business. Whether it was something with family, whether it was something that was like an actual risk while they were traveling that they tried, or if it was somebody in sobriety, almost everybody answers something similar that has a deep story to tell, and you do. How do you think that your story ultimately has impacted your brands, your personal brand, and the amount of business that you're doing? Because, bro, you're everywhere.
I have made a conscious decision to not change the person I am for anyone. And it's not like I'm intentionally being authentic. I just have, I think that I'm just straight up original with who I am. And I got that from making the decision to get sober and putting my fucking head down and doing whatever I had to do that. And with that, I learned about vulnerability. I learned about empathy. And it literally, in no time after I made the decision to get sober, my life got better. It just got better. And I was like, oh my gosh, wait, who I am is actually way better than who I wanted to be when I was getting high and drinking. I was so ashamed of who I was for whatever reason that I just thought that I would drink. I don't even know where that shame came from. I don't, but there was a lot of shame that I had. Growing up in my teens, and I put on this facade. I was the guy at the end of my drinking days that, people would see come into the bar and be like, fuck. Because I was always the first guy. I'd be your friend. I'd sit next to you. I'd have a good laugh. But if you said something that I didn't like, I would just straight punch you in the mouth. And it happened all the time. And it was a facade. It was, you know, I ended up falling into that character pretty well, but I was so scared of who I was that I thought if I presented as this guy that was small but will fucking fuck you up, that would be the persona that I had on the street. And it's so sad to think about that, because I figured out how to do it with my ability to communicate now, right? It's not fake, it's real. But I do think that has given me this sort of platform of authenticity in my brand. And, you know, look, like, because of Marcus, I learned about fitness and nutrition and mindset work early on. Before, you know, I think in the early 2000s, like there was no social media.
Right.
B, like people that worked out were kind of like thought of as like dumb jocks, right? Like this is before fitness became like a celebratory thing. And so it saved my life. And so for anybody listening now, like one thing I will say that you don't learn in the rooms of recovery is that if you're not, especially if you're young, if you're not diving deep into the world of fitness and nutrition, you're missing a lot of what you're not taking the opportunity to completely monetize the opportunity for your success as a human being.
100%. We talked about that last night, that fitness and nutrition should be part of the big book.
100%.
And I agree with you 100% too, because, you know, we see a lot of people that slip out, or they get sober and then they start to slip into mediocrity, right? They get fat, they work their get well job, and then they fall into this trap of misery. And then all of a sudden it's like, you might as well almost get fucked up, because at least then you can deal with like the miserable life that you had. But like if you're putting yourself in a miserable life and now you can feel it and you're also miserable, like there's got to be more. You have to be able to thrive in some way, shape, or form.
I think the idea of being able to control wins in life, right? You know, it's very, very difficult to control whether you win or you lose when other people are involved, right? Like most big wins require an army.
Yep.
But the little wins, hydration, good sleep, healthy meal, went to the gym, got 10,000 steps, read a little book, wrote a little journal. Like these little things, and I'm not saying you have to do all of them, but like grab a handful of them. These things, specifically the fitness and nutrition piece, these are real, controllable wins that you can apply every single day without anybody like getting in the way of them, right? There's no excuses. You can actually win all fucking day long. Grab a handful of those things. And when I figured that out, and Marcus had figured that out, so he painted the picture for me. And that's where Kreatures of Habit came from. And we'll get into that. But, you know, I learned early on. He gave me what now we know as habit stacking. He gave me a structure from the minute I woke up to the minute I went to bed. He said, this is what I am suggesting you do. This is what I do. This is how I've won. This is how I've stayed sober. This is how I'm happy. This is how, like, I am the guy that you are looking up to right now. And I was like, damn, okay. And, you know, like, when people see someone who is fit, there's no denying the fact that that person has discipline. Mm-hmm. It's just, you can't deny it. And discipline is, the craziest thing about discipline is that it's there for anyone and everyone to take. It is available for everyone. We can all have it. Arguably, in my opinion, the most valuable skill set humans can have. The ability to do what you say you're going to do. When you can be the person that does what they say they're going to do, And now my kind of philosophy or strategy with this is, if I am on the fence on whether or not I'm going to do something, it will not pass my lips. I will not tell people about it. I will manifest on it. I will pray on it. I will write about it. I will not let it pass through my lips. However, after I've done the diligence and I'm like, all right, I'm going to fucking do that, I will tell a few people and that's it.
For accountability, or what's the purpose?
This is sort of my strategy, where I tell a few people and then I've got no choice.
Yep.
I've just got no choice. It's
signing a contract
with myself, period, done. Once someone else knows about it, it happens. And I will fucking die on the hill until it does. And I'm here to say that has come to fruition in my life. And so I think that's been my success. That's the core and the foundation of why I've been able to build what I have and have a marriage for, with my wife for 20 years and, have sons that like love their dad and know them that, I might not be there all the time because I fucking work my ass off. But when I am there, they know that I'm the dad,
Yeah. I feel that.
So I think to sort of answer that, really sort of get to the core of the question, that was a long way of saying people appreciate authenticity. And I know that word gets kicked around a lot, but people really appreciate authenticity. And that has been the one thing that I think every business that I've launched is authentic and has a story to tell. Every brand that I've worked with have said to me very clearly, the only reason why we really want to work with you is because you're kind of well-rounded and authentic. And so being shameless about that piece of my life, super vulnerable, open book, down to just open up the doors has been,
When we're using, we tend to completely miss the things like vulnerability, empathy, real connections, right? Because you can't numb out one thing. You can't pick and choose what you're numbing, right? So vulnerability becomes a every other emotion and feeling that we get becomes a relatively new thing to us, right? And typically we use to feel some type of way, and then all of a sudden this new feeling comes. And when that vulnerability turns into a connection, I know for myself, I got addicted to that. That was something that I was like, I want more connection. I want more vulnerability. I want more, just human interaction. And it was missing from my life for so long. I was around people all the time. And I'm sure you were too. And it was almost like I was alone the whole entire time. Brene Brown talks about this and about numbing out things and if you're trying to drink to be happier, well, it doesn't exactly work like that. Or if you're drinking because you're sad, well, you're also going to numb out the happiness. There's no picking and choosing. And I think as addicts, when we finally let go and we finally do the work on ourselves and all of a sudden we feel these emotions, it's like, wow, I want more.
I think the one thing that most addicts don't realize, even in recovery, but especially as they're coming in, is that we are the most loyal, dedicated, committed humans on the planet. When it came down to if somebody, it just never happened where a day would go by that I wouldn't be high or drunk most of the time. And that is commitment. I was very committed to it. And luckily my bottom wasn't a Bowery bum, shitting my pants in a men's shelter. I know a lot of people who had that bottom and have turned into these incredible human beings that are just killing it in life. But that wasn't my story. I was able to hold, even if I was up for 3 days, I'd show up to work, do a huge line of Coke. I'd drink a half a glass or a glass of white wine in one gulp. And that was my work thing, white wine and cocaine, And so I like was able to like pull it off. But this piece that a lot of addicts don't realize is that when you strip away the substance, that drive, commitment, the potential for it is so strong. It's so real. If you can put something right in the path of somebody who's just getting sober, you put something in the path that's going to make them feel good, a win. The alcohol and the drugs, man, it was all about a win. I wanted win. I wanted to control it. I felt bad. I wanted to feel better. I felt good. I wanted to feel better. I felt indifferent. I wanted to feel better. I had the ability to say, boop, change the game, right? Even if it lasted 5 minutes, it was just like the ability to control that. I wanted to be God. I wanted to play I wanted to be all the roles. And when you strip that and then strategically find a way to like drop something real quick in front of an addict that will like give them that potential feeling, man, like, and especially again, like I can't say it enough, fitness and nutrition I think fitness and nutrition are the key to success for anyone, honestly. Like I believe that because when you can feel good about your temple, proud, people will say to me, oh God, another shirtless shot from Chernow. And I'm like, you know what? I'm fucking proud of that.
Yeah.
I work hard. I work fucking hard on that. I'm proud of it. Don't project your insecurity on me.
Right.
It's just it's something to be like super proud of. Super proud of. It's so hard. It's so hard to dream about being a certain way and looking a certain way. And I've got no issue with saying I like to look good. Zero shame. I can give a fuck what anybody said. You want to hate me all day long because I say I love loving myself? That's on you, man. That's your shit, not mine. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, no, if you love yourself, then you shouldn't care to begin with.
Right. So giving someone the gift, that's why transformations are so powerful when you see like before and after shots, like, it's since the beginning of time, since Weight Watchers started, like that is the golden ticket.
If they can do it, so can I.
100%.
Yeah.
And it is like, I don't think that there is a better ad campaign across all mediums than a before and after. It's just what it is, right? Real estate, fitness, lifestyle, nutrition, all of it, like before and afters. And so when you can do it and you can give somebody the gift or help somebody find their way with that, you change their life. That is real life-changing shit, right? Like you hear about people that win the lottery, immediate life-changing experience, dead in 6 months.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like someone like amazing founder, entrepreneur, builds this business, $250 million in revenue, sells the company for $600 million. Now what? That's what I hear. Like, okay, I did this. It's amazing.
What's next?
What am I going to do now? You give somebody the ability to like feel good in their body. Like that's not like okay, what's next thing. That's like I am proud of that. And I really do think that anybody who's listening who is looking for a change that is deeply impactful, that will inspire others, get your fitness and your nutrition, your sleep right. You can build anything after that. That's how I see it.
Yeah. So moving forward, the next big risk, I would assume, entrepreneurship.
I think the next big risk for me was when I asked my wife to marry me.
Okay.
Yeah. That was, so I met Donna about 9 months after I got sober. And I kind of knew almost immediately within the first couple of weeks that we were dating, I was like, this is it. Like,
Isn't that funny how that works?
there was just no denying it for me. So I called, my father had been dead for a while at that point, but I called my grandfather and I'm like, Pop, it's 3 months. I've met this woman who I'm like madly in love with. And I think I'm going to ask her to marry me. And he was like, whoa, slow down.
Yeah.
He's like, do you live with her? And I was like, no, but she sleeps at my house pretty much every night. He's like, no. He's like, you do what you want to do, but if you want my blessing for this, get an apartment with her. Live with her for a year, a full year. And if you still feel the same way, go for it.
Interesting coming from a grandfather, right? Because typically a traditional grandfather would be like, marry that woman before you move in with her. You know what I mean?
He was very adamant about living with her. He was just like...
Oh, I agree with him.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting that was your grandfather's advice.
Yeah. I mean, he was also like... He was actually kind of the matriarch of our family. I mean, he was a naval officer for 45 years.
Oh, wow.
And he fought in World War II. He flew blimps, around the country in surveillance blimps way after the war. And then sort of, he was an entrepreneur. And he did pretty well. I mean, he wasn't like rolling, but he did well. And so I always kind of looked up to him. Definitely more than my father. Anyway, he was like, wait a year. So 11 months after we moved in together, I was like, this, 11's my lucky number. And 11's my lucky number. And it was 11 months after we moved in. And I was like, man, funny story. I feel like telling because it's kind of works with this. But so we move in together. And I was seeing 11:11 a lot. But after we moved in, I noticed that I was seeing it in the morning and in the evening at night because I was working at night. And for whatever reason, I would just always see it every morning, every night. I would see it. I was like, this is fucking weird. So I started actually taking note of when I would see it. And it wasn't like I was intentionally looking for it. It would just show up. And I saw it every single day for just under 3 months. And I was like, God, I know you are telling me something here. So I got 11:11 tattooed across my stomach. And 11 months after we moved in together, I asked her to marry me. And 11 months after I asked her to marry me, we got married.
Oh,
so
I love that.
Yeah. And the way the way I asked her to marry me was crazy. We went to Europe for like a 3-week trip, and I'd gotten an engagement ring. And I cut holes in the tongues of my sneakers that I took on the trip with me that I would slip the engagement ring in because I just didn't know when the right time was going to be. So I was like, man, I should just have the fucking ring with me all the time.
Yeah, it's a good stash spot. Clearly a drug addict stash spot.
Yeah. And we went to Barcelona and we stayed in Barceloneta, which is kind of like the residential area right off the beach in Barcelona, which is a little seedy, but like just super hot and sexy. The lights are just like, it's just really kind of like a romantic kind of place. But I just didn't feel it there. And then we went to Catania, Sicily, where I have some really old kind of family friends. And they put us up like on the beach. And Catania is really cool. But I told Ricardo, I was like, hey man, my girl, like I'm going to ask her to marry me on this trip. You got to like tell me where to go. And he was like, oh, go to the beach. Da, da, da. Anyway, the day before we were leaving Catania, he's like, yo, I want to take you guys out for dinner in Taormina. I was like, what's Taormina? He's like, oh, it's the most beautiful place on the planet. I'm like, dude, I'm leaving Sicily tomorrow. In 2 days. I'm like, I asked you to tell me where the most beautiful place was, and you're taking me the day before. So we go to Taormina, and he was right. Taormina is arguably one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my life. It's this like 1,000-year-old village on a mountainside with like 300-foot cliffs to the Mediterranean. It's amazing, and the water's incredible. So we went out for dinner, and then I was like, dude, I'm booking a hotel. We're staying here. This is where I'm going to do it. And so I found this really amazing restaurant that had this outdoor veranda, and I made a late reservation because I was like, we'll be outside. It'll be late. We'll be alone looking over the Mediterranean, and that's where I'm going to do it. And so it's like 10 o'clock at night. We're having dinner. I'm terrified. Like I'm talking about I just got like my body was just terrified to ask her to marry me. Because I was, of course, I knew she was the one, but the thoughts of like, addictive behavior. This is it for me. This is what it's going to be for the rest of my life. Like, I'm scared. Anyway, I knew that she was the one, and all of a sudden, a family with like 4 fucking little kids comes and sits down right next to us. And this place was perfect. And I'm like, oh my God. So I go ask the maitre d', hey, I was going to ask my wife to marry me on the patio, but obviously it's a little funky to do it right next to this family. Is there another place that you would suggest I do it? And he was like, bello, tu devi, and I was just kind of trying to understand what he was saying. But anyway, we leave the restaurant and we walk over to the cliffs and we start walking back towards our hotel. And in my mind, I'm like, I have to do it. I have to do this between now and when we get to our hotel, which was probably a 10-minute walk. Trying to muster up the courage to do it. When am I going to do it? And then all of a sudden, dude, and talk about higher power, talk about like, we hear this insane boom, like, and I'm thinking there's an explosion like somewhere, not super close, but it was like this insane noise. And we turn around, and God is my witness, Mount Etna, the volcano, started erupting right then and there, dude. And it was like probably 100 miles away, but we can hear it and you can see this lava shooting up into the sky.
Oh, wow.
I dropped down on my knee right then and there. And I was like, Donna, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever met in my life. You're my best friend. I love you more than anything. I've never loved anything even close to how I, feel about you. Would you spend the rest of your life with me? It was fucking nuts. I get emotional thinking about it. But, that was just a crazy experience, getting like Mount Etna erupting. I drop on my knee. And then the next day, that guy, Ricardo, his father was like in politics in Sicily. And he like led the agricultural department. I don't know exactly what it's called, but he got us a private sort of VIP tour of the volcano. So we got onto the volcano. We were like feet away from the lava river. I mean, it was insane. It was so cool. But yeah, that was a big risk, for me. And it was sobriety was definitely the first and probably the best risk I've ever taken in my life. Asking Donna to marry me, second big, best risk I've ever taken. And then business. I kind of worked at that restaurant. I stayed at Frank all throughout I got sober just before my 24th birthday, and I worked there another 4 years. I went back to school. I got a degree in culinary arts and restaurant management. And when I was 26, I kind of knew that I was going to open up my own business. I just needed to figure out how I was going to do it. And so I graduated the restaurant management program. Cornell and the French Culinary Institute came together to offer a truncated version of their hospitality program, which is the best in the country. And so I applied for a scholarship for that. I got the scholarship, graduated when I was 27, spent about 4 months working on a business plan. And the restaurant that I worked at was a regular spot. And these regulars had been coming in for years and years. So they knew me from a 20-year-old kid that ended up getting his life together, that met the woman of his dreams, that got married, that went back to school, that was telling everybody that I was going to open up my own restaurant until I dropped a business plan in front of 20 of the regulars that I thought could potentially be interested in investing and helping me open up my first business. And I put it in front of 20, 25 regulars, and 14 of them wrote me a check. Nice. And that was how I raised the money for the first business, the Meatball Shop. And, interestingly, like, I was not scared to open up my first business. I had been entrepreneurial my whole life. From as early as I can remember, I was selling my toys on the corner of 87th Street and 2nd Avenue and, wheeling and dealing at the baseball card shops and, making comic book grab bags for kids and, walking 30 dogs by the time I was 11 years old. Like, I was always thinking, how can I make, do, and create? It was just inherently part of my way of thinking. And then of course I got into selling drugs while I was using, and learned a lot about business doing that. Learned a lot about how to move and shake and maneuver. And so business wasn't foreign to me. And I've always had that grit and that hustle, even when I was drinking and using. And so I just took the leap, man. And we opened up this restaurant, and it just called the Meatball Shop. It never thought that, it would have done what it did, but the story was really good. And that's why I say to entrepreneurs, the business of business is storytelling. It really is.
Yeah,
and you know that.
Yeah, stories sell.
That's it, right? So, not everybody is a great storyteller, but the great storytellers tend to be the most successful entrepreneurs, right?
Every leader is a good storyteller.
Right.
Every great leader is a great storyteller.
And so I knew that the storytelling was something that I had. Just like I was always the guy from childhood that was telling stories, always telling a story, and people would surround that. And so I just knew that I was going to be able to tell a good story with Meatball Shop. My partner, Daniel, one of the greatest chefs to this day, I know, and still my best friend. And we grew up together. We had a dream of doing something together in the restaurant business. He got me a job. He got me my first job in a restaurant when I was 12. He was he was a couple years older than me, answering the delivery department phone. I was running deliveries out of this vegan restaurant. And, and we did it, man. We opened up this restaurant. We thought we were going to do $1 million in our first year, which was like a fucking reach. We were like, man, if we can do $1 million out of this place selling meatballs, like that would be insane. We did $4 million.
Oh, what?
And we paid our investors back in 6 months. We were cooking meatballs on the Today Show, Good Morning America, Jay Leno, nice. Chelsea Handler, Jimmy Fallon. They put us on TV like immediately, and we were good on TV. And so the media and the PR was insane. And it just drove people to the restaurant. People were waiting 4 hours for a bowl of meatballs. It was nuts. And we opened up 5 more in 3 years. And so we scaled it from 1 store to 6. Daniel and I started to butt heads. I lost millions of dollars in that business. But it was a great lesson, I hate $1 million plus lessons, but it was a great lesson. And the lesson that I will say to all entrepreneurs is that, making $1 million is something very few people on planet Earth get to do. Mm-hmm. Very few people. And more now than before, but still, very small percentage. So if you have an idea that and have the audacity to think that your idea is going to move people to want to spend money and participate in it, you got to have balls to do that and audacity. But if you are that person and you feel like you have the confidence to go out and do that, and you do that, and you're able to drive millions of dollars of other people's money on the idea that you came up with one day. When somebody offers you money for that business, or a percentage of that business, or a piece of that business, take fucking money. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying sell the whole thing, but I'm saying when you have an opportunity to take money off the table, take the money. And Daniel and I had an opportunity to sell somewhere between 60 and 90% of our business that we started with $20,000 each for $45 million in 3.5 years. Turned 20 grand, turned 390 grand into 45 million. These guys were not playing games. And because Daniel and I butted heads, once things started to get hot and heavy and busy and intense, and I looked at him after this private equity fund came back with their diligence valuation, and they said 45 million. I thought that they were going to say like 15 or 20, which I would have been happy with either way, too. Yeah. But they said 45. I looked at Dan and I was like, oh my God, this is it, dude. We did it. You're going to get your mom out of the basement apartment. I'm going to get my mom out of that 600 square foot apartment. We're going to go buy them houses. We did it, dude. And he was like, no, It's worth 50 to 55. And I was like, Dan,
Getting greedy.
dude, he's like, we got a store in negotiation. We got a store that's about to start construction. In 12 months time, if they're going to offer us 45 now, we can make $5 to $10 million more in 12 months. I was like, Dan, dude, this is our fucking moment. You will put 8 to 10 million in the bank. I will put 8 to 10 million in the bank. We will still own somewhere between 40 and 30, between 30 and 40% of this company that they're going to dump millions into to scale across the country. We did it. I couldn't convince him. And the board was his brother, his brother's best friend, and his brother's best friend. So the two lessons I've learned in that, and I'm grateful for them. A, take the money when you can. Don't have ego around it.
Go.
Take the money when it hits the table. B, if you set up a board, make sure that it is not a bias board.
Oh yeah, it's lopsided as fuck.
Like, you must make sure that you have a fair deal. I'm not saying that you're gonna occupy the board completely, but if you have to ask yourself, if push came to shove, is this board going to err on one side or the other before anything comes up? You have to think about the worst case scenario. And if the answer is, you know what, chances are they're related, it's going to be very, very difficult for that brother to go against his brother.
Yeah, nor would you want to be the one that stood in between that. So what ended up happening?
We didn't get the deal. We didn't do the deal.
And a year later?
And I knew at that point that I needed to exit because I was like, this is going to get super ugly. Dan and I were already battling. It wasn't fun. And so a year later, I sold a bunch of equity at a fraction of the valuation. I mean, I still made my first $1 million at 31 years old, but you know, it was a hard one to swallow, right? And then right away, I opened up a second concept. So, and I took on no partners. I was like, I know that I have what it takes to tell the story of a great New York City restaurant. Doesn't matter what I'm selling, I'm gonna do it again. And interestingly, we had been green lighted for a TV show about the Meatball Shop and a couple of other characters. But I had already begun my exit strategy. They had optioned the show a year and change before this whole thing went down. So they had us on option for 18 months. And at the year mark, our agent was like, CNBC is not gonna greenlight this. If they haven't done it already, they're not gonna do it. Because I had said to Josh, hey man, like this is not going well. Like I need to be honest with you. Like I have no interest in doing a TV show about this. Like this is not a fun thing.
That's your homie you were talking about yesterday?
No, this is our agent from a while ago at WME. And Josh was like, yeah, I don't think that they're going to option. I don't think that they're going to greenlight this. In month 17, I had already taken my first restaurant and started construction. CNBC goes, we're going to greenlight this show. Consume the real restaurant business. And I said to Josh, I'm not doing the show. He's like, dude, you're contractually obligated to do the show. You have to do the show. I said, they will have to take me to court because I am not going to A, fake it, and B, have to get into the ring with Dan again. Like Dan and I were just, it was really tough, the two of us. Even though the business was so successful, it was really hard. And the two of us are alpha. So you got two heavy alphas that just are not seeing eye to eye, man. It's just not good. And so Josh was like, dude, we're going to have to figure something out, right? Like, I'm putting I'm involved. Like, we got to figure it out. So I was like, you know what? Let me pitch an idea. I'm already knee deep in Seamore's, like Seamore's is my next 5 to 10 years of life. My wife is pregnant. Like, I need to like not get back into the ring in this way. So how about this? How about we showcase the reality of what's happening? This is a reality show. Showcase the reality of what's happening. We capture Dan and I, two best friends, build this epic business together, don't see eye to eye, and the breakup of two friends that go into business together, because that is real, because that is typically what happens. You think it's a great idea to go into business with your brother, your best friend, and the truth of the matter is when things get successful and money gets involved, both brains think they're right. Mm-hmm. It's very rare that you agree on everything, and that's where trouble happens, because it's very, very, very easy to tell your best friend to fuck off. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? How many times have you told your best friend, you know what, fuck off, dude?
Yeah.
So I said, let's showcase that, and then me opening up my new restaurant concept. And he was like, I like that idea. Pitched it to CNBC. They were like, boom, we love that idea better. And we shot the show. Oh, well. And it was really tough because we had to reenact some of the stuff. But we did that. I ended up opening up Seamore, super successful, #1 restaurant, New York Magazine, 9 months straight, in all of New York City. Just, did close to 5 million our first year, and ended up bringing on a partner who was really good at scaling restaurants, way smarter than me, raised money, scaled it, and I sold a bunch of equity in that in 2019, at the end of 2019, 3 months before the pandemic hit. And so I got lucky again there. And that's, how this business has now become, the greatest business I think I've ever launched, honestly.
Well, let's talk about this.
So Kreatures of Habit, as I was putting together the exit strategy for me at Seamore's, I had already been thinking about the next project, which was, I knew I needed to be in wellness. Wellness saved my life. I went from meatballs to seafood, which was a progression towards a healthier vision. But I knew that I just needed to be just deep in wellness. And I had said, you would think in New York City there would be like a healthy restaurant with a vibe. But the only real healthy restaurants in New York are lunch spots and also vegan restaurants. Like, healthy restaurants in New York look like healthy restaurants, smell like healthy restaurants. You're in a healthy restaurant, and you're not like stoked to go there with your friends. So I wanted to create a dope restaurant vibe, dope experience, but the food just happened to be healthier. And we were going to call out keto options, paleo options, plant-based options. So like, if you were eating a certain way, you just knew that you can go to this spot. You wouldn't have to be like, let me get this, hold that, hold that, hold that. There would be like 4 options for you that you knew were just part of that protocol. And so I was going to call it Kreatures of Habit, because I'm a creature of habit. Habit saved my life, almost killed me. I like the ones that saved me. And so I wanted to just like sort of showcase this idea that like the decisions you make on a daily basis based on your habits will portray and dictate what your life looks and feels like. And I knew that nutrition is essential. Food is essential. The relationship we have with food is definitely the most intimate relationship outside of your loved one. Nothing goes into your body and makes us. Food does. Food does that. And it makes us feel emotionally very strong, either good or bad. Yep. And if we do it well, it's a massive win. So I was just like, I want to create this place for people. And instead of scaling that restaurant, because I got kind of sick and tired, I'd opened up 13 restaurants. I was like burnt out on scaling restaurants. I was like, I am going to scale this business through packaged goods. So we'll use the restaurant as a marketing hub, a content hub, obviously a revenue generator, but ultimately an incubator for a line of consumer packaged goods. We'll make products in the restaurant. We'll put them out to the tables. We'll have people try them, give feedback, build a retail area, see what people were grabbing and taking home with them. And that was going to be our sign that, okay, that's a product that we can invest money behind and launch in CPG. I put together a sick business plan for it, found the most incredible restaurant, 5,000 square feet, 8 skylights, like my dream restaurant. 1 level brick structure, built in 1890, just sick. And then I was about to sign the lease the first week of March. All the grumblings about this virus that people were getting really sick from. Second week of March was the end of everything. You know, like all in real life business took a sharp left turn, you know? And so I had to pull that whole entire business plan down. I had to call off the investors and, you know, like, I'm grateful for it because it gave me an opportunity to think outside of the box. Restaurants were a medium for me, not my only medium. And so I hired an executive coach, and I moved my family out of New York City to upstate New York. I really wanted to give myself some time to like metabolize what was going on, but also like deeply consider what the future was going to look like for me. And my only regret in life, straight up, is my son Finley was born in March of 2015. I opened up Seamore's in June of 2015, and I went on the road to shoot my TV show in August of 2015. So that full year I missed of my son's life. First full year. The only regret I have in my life. I would pay any amount of money to have been given the opportunity to make a different decision then. Do I think I would have not opened the restaurant and not done the show? I don't know, but I would have done it differently because I can't believe that I missed that year of his life, you know? And now giving an opportunity, I was forced to make a decision and make a pivot if I wanted to continue being a business owner, because I was not going to open up a brick and mortar business.
Right.
I was like, whoa, this is my chance. I can step out of the restaurant business and I can have a business that'll allow me to have breakfast and dinner with the family, allow me to be home on the weekends and like not be stressing about being in restaurants. What the fuck am I going to do?
But that time period, we don't like to say the word on on camera, but that time period for the creative ones worked out pretty good.
Oh yeah.
And so, you know, who would have thought? Delivered subscription oatmeal. But it's not just that.
So
because the way you were describing it, obviously, that we have a lot going on here.
Well, the story of Kreatures is basically I went out on a run, like spending a lot of time working with this coach, trying to figure out what was going to be the next thing. And I went out on a run, and it all came to me on one run. The whole business, this product, you know. And I got back from that run, and I told my wife what I was going to do, and she was like, "What? Oatmeal? What?" Like, when Marcus came into my life and wrote me that structured plan, the first thing he told me to eat every single day was oatmeal. And from that day to this day, what I eat every day is fucking oatmeal. It has fueled my body, fueled my system, gave me that win. Like, this was a massive win for me when I was getting sober. I needed to be told what to do, and I listened, and it was a habit that made me feel confident that I can stick to something simple, easy, accessible, inexpensive. And so over the years, I had started adding things to it, protein and seeds and nuts and sodium. And I wanted to create, not thinking about a business down the road, but just the ultimate first meal of the day that was going to fuel me because I became an athlete in sobriety. And so I was on that run, and I was like, dude, like, this is like the one meal that I really look forward to every single day. I have it every single day. And if I can figure out a way to get that meal that takes me 20 minutes to make, because I used to make it hot every morning, plus my supplement stack in a pouch, not only do I have like a fucking optimized fuel tank, for like fuel source for people that's going to taste really good, but I'll be able to tell my story, really tell my story, because this is a byproduct of my journey from the dark to the light.
Wow. Bro. Yeah. So I've spent 2 days with you now, and it's been the best 2 days, and getting to know you and all of that. But guess what? I still haven't even tried Creatures of Habit.
I'm going to get you some. We're going to try it right now. So I made you my favorite flavor, which is the peanut butter banana.
Okay. We got blueberries in here too.
I threw some blueberries in there for you.
Oh yeah.
This is our new flavor, cinnamon roll. You know, and it's a simple. You're getting gluten and glyphosate-free oats, 30 grams of plant-based protein, chia seeds, flax seeds, and pumpkin seeds for electrolyte and texture, pink Himalayan salt for electrolytes,
Yep.
vitamin D3, probiotic, digestive enzymes for gut health. It takes 30 seconds to make the night before. You put it in the fridge overnight. You know, you mix it with some almond milk, oat milk, regular milk, throw it in the fridge, pull it out in the morning, splash of milk, loosen it up, and that's it. You don't ever have to think about your first meal of the day.
And this is almond milk in here, or what's in this
almond
one?
milk.
Yeah. I can taste that. Oh, this is great.
And it's, you know, it's like, I mean, I don't love saying this, but it's just the facts. It's like, it's a meal. It's incredibly satiating, but it's a treat. It tastes like a fucking treat. You know, there's a lot of people that actually use this as dessert too. It's only 350 calories, but you're getting
There's a lot in here.
a lot,
Yeah.
you know? So I never thought that I'd be slinging oatmeal, honestly. The brand is, we sell oatmeal, but ultimately what I'm doing is telling the story of better habits, better life. It's just that simple.
It's a lifestyle brand.
Period. It is just that simple. The decisions that you make on a daily basis consistently will dictate your happiness or lack thereof. The relationship we have with food plays such a big role in that. It just plays such a big role in how we feel, right? Deion Sanders says it best, you know? Look good, feel good, perform good. I mean, it's just the way it is. And so we also launched a sleep support. So this is our hot chocolate. It tastes just like Swiss Miss. It's got a bunch of ingredients in there that have been studied to help you relax, fall, and stay asleep without using melatonin. Melatonin is not the greatest thing on the planet, and a lot of people use melatonin for sleep. And so I wanted to create a sleep support that really worked, that was actually efficacious, that tasted good. So like this is, for me, at night, this is a 35 calorie treat that has 0 sugar. It's only sweetened with monk fruit, and it genuinely cools me out. GABA is a very potent ingredient that's in here. GABA slows down the neurotransmitters from your brain, and it just it relaxes you and really helps you sort of like whisk off into sleep and get deep, more restful sleep. So this has been, you know, you kind of start your day with meal one, you finish your day with Creature Sleep. And this is a business that I'm currently running, man. It's kind of wild that I went from 13 restaurants to this, but this is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to tell stories, and I'm meant to share my experience. And this business has given me an opportunity to do that. And you know, there's thousands of people that use this every day. I never thought, I did think. But the fact that we have, you know, thousands of subscribers that use this every day, I call a lot of our customers. I open up my Shopify, I open up the orders, and I just start calling customers. And the stories that I've gotten, man, you know, oatmeal alone sucks.
Oh yeah.
It spikes your blood sugar. It tends to have a shitty consistency. But when you add a real dose of protein to it, with omega-3 fatty acids, so healthy fats, what it does for the system is a very different story. And when you soak oats overnight, the digestibility of those oats become like bulletproof. This has never given me indigestion. Almost every other thing I eat can and has, you know?
Really?
So I'm stoked that you tried it. Stoked that you like it.
No, I'm a big fan. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. Where can people buy this?
Kreaturesofhabit.com. Creatures with a K.
Yep.
Creatures with a K. We should give your audience a discount code.
Okay.
So you want to do like JWX, the number 20, 20% off?
Yeah. JWX20, guys, at creaturesofhabit.com. We will put all of the information down in the caption below. We appreciate you guys watching. This was really fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this with me. Thank you for treating me to a nice snack. I was stoked. You just gave me a bunch of good energy right now. This whole show was just really good. This whole weekend was really fantastic, bro. I appreciate you. Last night was great. Today has been great. I'm really thankful for our friendship.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me, dude. This was awesome.